So Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars. Okay, the Jupiter, no bad aspects to the Jupiter. The Jupiter is unafflicted. It's in Capricorn, so it's more cautious than just normal speculation in Sag, but it's not squaring anything, it's not opposing anything. So the Jupiter is practical understanding. It's authority understanding. So it's ruled by Saturn. It's in the night. Its nighttime is increasing, but daylight is increasing, but the nighttime is still greater. I can see what to do within context. So it adds a Saturn element to the Jupiter, which gives a fairly good sense of timing, a good sense of the timing of things, where things are at. Whereas the Aries, Sun, Moon, Sun, Mercury, Venus is not, and the Mars is not, they're an impulse, it's not really on patience of time, of listening. But the Jupiter, the understanding is, the assimilating of things, like maybe it's his understanding from his dad, or his understanding from authority, or understanding what's there. What are you? But okay, no big tendency to over-exaggerate. In fact, there's tendency, everything else is saying exaggerate. His understanding say, wait a second, there's a bit of a caution there. Okay, no houses to relate this, no angles to relate this to. So it sits there. The other planets will be more and more like that. Saturn's in Virgo, just in Virgo. That's very fussy and very picky. It's practical, it's earthy, it's meticulous. There's no bad aspects to Saturn. So Jupiter and Saturn, they're not afflicted. There's a fairly good structure. So it implies that there's not necessarily a bad relationship to dad or to authority. You can see his temperament is pushing the limits of authority, but you don't see necessarily the bad things Saturn is responsible. He's meticulous as sextilis Uranus, but there's no oppositions or squares to this. So Saturn in Virgo is working to improve things. I'm going to work to make something better. I'm going to work to improve it. The Aries is now. So there's a bit of restraint might come from Saturn. A bit of guidance must come from Jupiter being restrained. He's still not going to be able to listen completely, but they're not badly afflicted, so they're not tied into this battle. It's like two different areas in his life. Now everything from here on in is generational. He's got the Uranus and Gemini, but it's his independence and his free thinking. That's that whole post-war generation, 42 and on, that has the Uranus and Gemini. And the independent thinker, Bob Dylan, the poets, all the people who are great with ideas came through with this. But everyone has that, thinking for oneself. The Neptune's in Libra, that's the idea of marriage. That's a divorce generation. They come post-war, they're dreaming of the perfect marriage and in peace and pleasance. And this is the dream, someone will save me, it'll be there. And living up to expectations of that ended up being not only the marriage generation, but the divorce generation. Confused the parameters of marriage, of relationships. The Neptune. That Neptune, that whole attitude of what's marriage, what's relationships, directly opposes his energy. So I wouldn't read too much about it. We just see it. We've already talked enough about Neptune, but the Neptune in itself, the generational factors of relationship, marriage, resources, have a nice world. Someone, if you thought of the 50s, if someone in the 50s saw any of the harsh music or any of the advertisement, they'd be totally shocked. How could someone, they wouldn't have been ready for that. It was enough to get past the war and be seemingly living a nice, easy inner life. And music and things came in a lot of ways during that. Okay. The Pluto in Leo, that's everybody has to be best. That's the 39 to 56. That's have to be best, I have to be good, I have to get my education, I have to be a star, I have to make things up, but I have to be the best kid, whatever. That's a Pluto. So it's a driven thing. It's unique to this generation. It's a determination to have to prove. But these are the outer planets forcing this. But his Neptune causes problems he'll have difficulty living up to, and his Pluto creates strong demands on his moon, on his lifestyle. Okay, that's pretty good for thinking. So we got a sense of this person, some of the complexes, some of the puzzles. And at this point, we would go to look at the Saturn graph, but when we're working with, if we were working with the Saturn graph, we're going to do this, you can't put the angles on it. So you just have Saturn to itself and Saturn to the sun. Okay, so this is pretty good. Saturn to itself, that's it. We have a basic style of how we go up and where we are in that cycle. Everybody goes through. But Saturn to the sun is unique. And it gives, instead of looking at things above or below the horizon as the main distinction, which is there, there's also the one of whether it's going towards a conjunction of defining one's goals or biding your time by being as far away from your goals as you can in the Saturn opposition. So we begin to see building up to make your own thing go more, or running into the limits of what you can do. The Saturn opposed the sun. So here with the transits, you still do the graph, you just don't put the angles in. And later on, as you get to work with, you get a sense of it, you can put pencil, you can try the ascendant. I would do it on a separate piece of paper and try and get until we get to the ascendant to get closer to it. That's a whole other thing. But we can see his Saturn starts over here in Virgo and moves around. 14, it doesn't hit his sun till 49 to 67. So it takes about 18 years old. That's the first time Saturn hits the sun when he defines his goals. And he's going to start pushing it. That's the end of high school. He's going to push to make something happen, go do something. Then he's going to push that out, go through Saturn square, goes through squares of the sun, and it's going to come to his opposition in 1981, when Saturn opposes the sun. And he's caught away, he's far away from his goals, he's caught in it. Now remember, we know this is not a small thing, because when it opposes the sun, it's going to oppose his Venus, his Mars, and Mercury. All these things are going to be hit at the same time as this, and they're not going to be easy changes. But these are the Saturn points, the conjunction. So when you don't know a time, you're going to work the opposition and the conjunction of the sun is moving towards this and having to run across the limits at that point. That'll give you your anchor on how to see all the other timings against the background of the other times. You still get the square of adjusting the goals. These are reliable factors that you can rely on in assessing the time. Again, all the other aspects that are going on, we'll deal with those in the 8-year graph. We see the more specific things going on, but this will let you build the time plan up on a somewhat regular way. Now, I think to work through this, I think we're going to have to know who the person is and what, because we can work without it. I can keep going at it. I was going to do it like that, but I think okay, we'll just do a little further. So right now, let's see where Saturn is. Where are we? 94, 90, no. At 2010, Saturn was opposing the sun, as far away from his goals as it could be, 2010, 2011. Okay, that's when Saturn hits the conjunction squares or opposed to the sun, it's going to be conjuncting square this whole Sun, Mars, Venus conjunct opposed Neptune. So whatever was expanded, whatever was expected, it's going to restrict it and try and force it to get a little bit more real or be more practical. His impulse is not going to want to do that, but those are going to be his going up points, the Saturn points. So we saw the low point, 2010, 2011. Then he's going to a square to Saturn, and he gets a square to the sun in right now, just past 2018, December, 2019, January. So there was an adjustment of it. He had to adjust his goals. There's some restriction or some limit came in to force an adjustment. Saturn always shows as a restriction or limit first, then having to deal with it. Then it builds up to the Saturn opposition, 23, and he gets to the conjunction. The next conjunction of his sun is going to be in 27. So we see this is year where he's having to adjust his goals, or they're being adjusted so that, and he's finishing his old cycle. He finished it like 10, 15, like he went through the opposition already, and he knows he can't put up with it. He's trying to get to the new direction, but he's still having to put up with some of the old through all of this. And he's moving towards making a new thing. But when he gets to the next thing in 27, by then he's, how old is he? 18, 48, 78. He's well in his 70s. Like that's well past retirement time. But he looks like he'll be very active at that point, or making new decisions of his goals. Well, his goals are always going to be Aries, being active, doing things, not going to be passive. So we don't know what that's coming. That's further ahead, but we can see he's in this adjustment phase now. We can know that. When we look at the when I do the 8-year graph, you look at this at 2015, the beginning of 2015, Uranus conjuncted the Sun. And so while of 2014, Uranus was conjuncting the Sun, really independent, exciting time. But 2015, 16, 17, no outer planet aspects, Pluto and Neptune, nothing, no even Saturn. None of the other planets were causing any pressures. It was 15, 16, nothing stopping, nothing interfering with them until 2017. And even through the next 4 years, 5 years, there's still Pluto and Neptune not doing anything. They're not being critical in his life. So that's a good thing. Uranus, he made his big changes, but 2014, 15, then it's open up. In 2021 and 2022, Uranus conjuncts his moon, so it implies a change of family, a shock, a move, change of lifestyle, some changes coming. He's breaking away from his past and moving on to something new. I don't know so much what that is, but it's nothing now. Right now, March, the only things happened from this 8-year graph is Saturn just squared his Sun, which we talked about. But we don't have it building up to a lot of things. It's not active. So like we have, when we looked at the Saturn, we're seeing he's adjusting his goals, and we see that there, but we don't see anything else supporting. So we don't have other dramatic things to talk about. So that's a bit of a puzzle. It's easier to talk when there's a whole bunch of difficult things coming on. Here, there's not more further disruptions, not further confrontations, further confusion, further shocks. Everything's kind of in place. There's an adjustment now, and everything holds in place for a couple of years. Then there's some freedom and comes up to his lifestyle, and things start opening up differently after that. And even while the Uranus is conjuncting the moon, Saturn will be squaring it. So there'll be shocks to break free, live differently, not always that comfortable, but that's still 3-4 years away. It's hardly within the realms of for an Aries, what am I going to do now? So when we came to this, and going at this point, I would say, okay, so the other planets aren't in place. And then at this point, I would take the 2-year graph to see we've got the Saturn, the other planets in place. You're not expecting to you're just trying to see what's there, to get some sense of the timing of the person, where they're coming from, where they're going from. So here we are. Let me make this a bit bigger. Okay.